So back at the end of November, I applied to play a closed alpha test for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and I got in. I signed an NDA so I couldn't really talk about it, but Rocksteady announced that they're no longer enforcing parts of the NDA so we can talk about our experiences with the game, so I figured I'd make a first impressions video. This will be spoiler free, I am going to mention a few things about the story, but I'll be vague enough to avoid spoilers. I should also mention that we can't share any footage of our gameplay, to the point where our screens were plastered with watermarks of our gamer tags so they would know who leaked it if any of the footage got out. So I'm just going to throw up some footage of me playing Batman Arkham Knight on screen. And this will be a more casual video you can just throw on and listen to in the background. If there is anything to take away from this video, it's that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is not an Arkham game. It is developed by Rocksteady, and it is part of the Arkham canon, but it is in no way an Arkham game in the gameplay, and I honestly kind of like that. I can see why people would be upset by the switch up in a series where every game is based on the same combat and stealth fundamentals, but I think it's a really refreshing change despite some of the flaws it has. I will say that it does take some getting used to, as its control scheme is interesting to say the least. I mainly switched between Captain Boomerang and King Shark, but I did play with all 4 characters in the tutorial, and they don't all share the same gameplay basics in the combat, which can trip you up for a bit when you switch between them. Each of their weapons are a little underwhelming as well. I know the joke everyone has been saying is that his name is Captain Boomerang, but he only uses guns, which I get, but that's really only half the story. Each of these characters do use their character-specific weapons, but they're only really for special moves that charge up. You do use Harley's bat and King Shark's hooks a lot, but not enough to not feel underwhelmed. I do think the sponginess of the enemies and constant controlled fire of each character's gun really do fit the jungle gym arenas you fight in, and Metropolis is a great setting for that sort of combat. The only part of the gameplay that really irritated me was the traversal. It is so slow and monotonous to the point where traveling between missions makes me want to beg the developers for a fast travel system. Even Gotham Knights, a game that's basically if the Arkham series was neutered, had an acceptable base traversal system with the motorcycles. But all of Suicide Squad traversal is on foot and it really suffers for it. However, they do expand really well upon the Arkham world and its storyline. From what I played, it didn't really elaborate on the fear gas Batman of the Nightfall Protocol, but it does explain how Batman is back in action. A lot of people say his return ruins the ending of Arkham Knight, but I think they explained his return in the only way that doesn't ruin it. The who or what that brings him back to hero work is the best possible option in my opinion, and does a hard 180 on one of my least favorite tropes in superhero media, which I'll get into if I make a full review. I'm really walking on eggshells around this NDA no matter how necessary it is because I don't want to get into any legal trouble or be like blacklisted from getting games early, so I'm not going to say what it is directly, but one of the default memes on the Batman Arkham subreddit has been debunked in the alpha section of the game. You can find an elaboration out there, but after nearly a decade, we finally have learned that he is not stupid. I really enjoyed the writing in this game as well, especially when it comes to the characters and the dialogue. This game is really funny. Not as good as James Gunn's, but not so bad that they feel the need to write,
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
even something as small and basic as the Suicide Squad getting their bombs implanted in them is hilarious, as well as the retcons they make. With an established White as the Sun Deadshot being in 2 of the mainline games as well as the Vita game, I was expecting to get some half-ass excuse as to why and how the real Deadshot is a black man. I really do not give a fuck what race Deadshot is. I was just expecting a half-ass throwaway line that doesn't really make much sense, but they're going with anyway. But they fully acknowledge it. When the squad first meets, one of the first things anyone says is, "Isn't Deadshot supposed to be white?" So it might be a throwaway line, or they probably will expand upon his relationship and story with the other Deadshot later in the game. But regardless of what they do with it, I just thought it was hilarious how blatant they were with it. And when it comes to the characters themselves, I do think they're really well written. Boomerang's hilarious, Harley's one of the best iterations of the character I've seen. My only problem with the squad itself is that Deadshot meat rides Amanda Waller a little too much, but other than that, he's pretty cool. I also think that the JLA members are written incredibly well. Flash is arrogant and just such a jackass, Wonder Woman is really true to her character, and Green Lantern is really badass. Penguin is consistent with his previous appearances in the franchise, with Nolan North turning in an amazing performance as usual. And of course, Batman is intimidating as fuck. The sequence that follows his reveal that we saw in his trailer is true to the games that came before. It makes you think I'm totally fucked and this is rad as fuck at the same time. I wish I could talk more about it, but you know, spoilers. So yeah, although I played some parts I wasn't a fan of, and it is very different to the other games in the series, I am pretty excited for Suicide Squad. I think this is one of those games where a lot of people are going to take it at face value and hate it because it's not the same as the other games, but when you look at it for what it is and not what it isn't, it's pretty good. I think it's best to come in with no expectations and just keep the lore and story of the Arkham games in the back of your mind, as there are some pleasant surprises. I wish I could say more, but the alpha was only about 3 hours, and I'm still in the dark about a lot of stuff. And hopefully, if I get the game and review it, you'll come back and watch it. Like you'll come back like a boomerang. Like a boomerang. Hit the, do the thing.